Tomozaki was a miserable loser who was on track to die a virgin until he beat the most popular gamer girl. However, in exchange for winning, she agrees to give him a glow-up and turns him into a level 99 Gigachad, who starts rizzing up all the baddies. It all starts with Tomozaki playing a globally famous game called TACFEM against Nakamura, the most popular guy in school. While Nakamura desperately tries to get the upper hand, Tomozaki barely flinches because he is the top-ranked player in the country and easily beats him. After losing, Nakamura starts blaming the game and leaves to hang out with the popular girls, while Tomozaki walks home alone and blames life for being so unfair to him. Later that night, he hops on the game with his character, Nanashi, and gets challenged by a character called No Name, who is currently the second ranked in all of Japan. As the duel begins, Tomozaki notices that No Name has seriously improved his gameplay and gets tense because this game is the only thing good in his life. He eventually manages to win, but just as he wonders how No Name got so good, the player texts him, asking to meet up during the weekend. The next day in class, Tomozaki goes back to being an irrelevant background character and merely watches the popular students socialize. After classes, Tomozaki is on his way to lunch when the school's most popular girl named Hinami suddenly stops him to ask if he really won against Nakamura in a game. When he asks how she knows, she says the entire school has been talking about it, but Nakamura tells her to ditch the ugly dweeb so they can go eat. At the weekend, Tomozaki shows up at the spot for his meeting with No Name and is surprised to see that No Name is Hinami. She immediately dries up and expresses her disappointment, saying she never expected the player she respected to be some washed-up, rag-wearing loser who has clearly given up on life. When Tomozaki calls her rude, she says it's the simple truth and points out the fact that he literally wore rags to come see a stranger for the very first time. She then decides to head home because being around him is already bad enough. However, Tomozaki stops her and says she has no right to roast him because she has always had the perfect life. He explains how the real world is a trash game and says she only has an amazing life because she was born with baddie stats, while he literally started at the bottom. At this, Hinami says he is just making up excuses and claims he only hates people like her because he has never experienced the good parts of life. Tomozaki still insists that she is wrong because his life would look so much better if he started out the way she did, but to prove him wrong, Hinami grabs his hand and takes him home. While he's nervously waiting, a girl suddenly walks in, and he asks if she is Hinami's less attractive sister, but it's actually her. Just without all the makeup and plot-revealing outfits, much to his shock, Hinami then shows him how simply fixing his expression and posture changes a lot, adding that she was an irrelevant normie for most of her life until she started making the effort to change. This has helped her achieve everything she has ever set her mind to except beating him at TACFEM. Hinami then admits that she placed him on such a high pedestal because she was convinced that only a high-effort person could be Nanashi. However, after seeing that Japan's #1 player is a lazy slob who makes excuses for his own incompetence, she plans to show him that real life is the ultimate god-tier game, just as good as TACFEM. Hearing this flips a switch in his brain, so he agrees to play along. With that, Hinami takes him to a restaurant and explains how he has to spend every day practicing his smile while wearing a face mask, so that no one will see his crooked face until he perfects it. They will also be meeting in an old classroom before classes every day to review what tasks he has to accomplish. Later that night, Tomozaki tries to practice his smile, but his sister tells him not to make her life harder by being even more of an embarrassment. The next day, at school, Tomozaki shows up for the daily meeting with Hinami, and she decides to start with two main goals. The first is for a member of his family to notice his glow-up, and the second is to get a girlfriend before his 3rd year. To achieve the second goal, Tomozaki has to start small by talking to 3 girls before the day ends. Hearing this, the geek's heart starts pounding because he knows that there is no way he can say no to Hinami. To make matters worse, 2 of the girls have to be chicks wearing neckties, and only the hottest girls wear neckties while uggos like you wear bows. Minutes later, Tomozaki gets in his seat and starts sweating buckets because the first girl he has to talk to sits right beside him. However, thanks to the tips Hinami gave him, he finds the courage to ask Izumi if she has a tissue for his cold. After she says no, he tells her not to worry, but then she asks Kikuchi, the quiet girl sitting at the back. Tomozaki immediately gets scared, but after Kikuchi gives Izumi the tissue, he thanks her and uses it. He also thanks Kikuchi and wonders if this counts as talking to another girl. When she asks why his face looks like that, he realizes that the mask is off and panics, claiming his teeth hurt. Next is Nanami, a smoking hot chick nearly on the same level as Hinami. She already sits beside him in home economics class, so Tomozaki heads over and finds her already in her seat. He wonders what to say to her, but when he gets close enough, she asks why he came so early. Tomozaki then considers admitting that he wanted to talk to her, but even he knows that's way too creepy, so he says there is no reason. When Nanami says she gets it, he says girls nowadays can be so empathetic. The next moment, Nanami starts laughing and tells him to stop acting like an old geezer, but Tomozaki gets confused. This makes Nanami laugh even harder until a chick named Tama asks what's going on. After running to hug her, Nanami says that Tomozaki is hilarious, so Tama asks for an explanation, and he tells her what happened. As Nanami starts laughing again, Nakamura shows up with his buddies Take and Takahiro. He also wants to know what's so funny, but after Tomozaki explains it again, Nakamura says it's nothing to laugh at. After his boys agree, Nanami says they don't have any sense of humor, but Nakamura insists that she is the weird one for laughing. When Nanami continues laughing, he decides to let everyone present decide who is the weird one between them. While his friends vote for him, Tomozaki notices that Tama has been staring Nakamura down this entire time. He also gets worried about having an issue with Nakamura, but then Hinami shows up and votes for Nanami. Nakamura says she shouldn't even be here, but she insists that she heard everything and says he is just picking on Tomozaki because he lost to him at TACFEM. After she also says this is why he got dumped, everyone starts laughing, and Tomozaki finally gets enough courage to vote for Nanami. Seeing this, Nakamura accepts the vote, and when Hinami tells him to get revenge by challenging Tomozaki again at TACFEM, he agrees and promises to get better at the game. Moments later, Tama thanks Hinami for showing up to help them. After Hinami tells her not to worry about it, Nanami hugs them both and starts kissing Tama. Tomozaki freezes up, wondering what kind of depraved performance he is watching, but then Hinami jumps back and tells Nanami to stop. Nanami then decides to focus on her instead, and almost gets a kiss, but Hinami pushes her back again. After Tama tells her to stop being a creep all the time, Tomozaki thanks Hinami for helping him, and she admits to being surprised by how funny he actually is. After Nanami and Tama decide to get on a first-name basis with Tomozaki, he asks why Tama doesn't use her real name. She claims she just doesn't care, and Nanami explains how cute Tama makes her sound. Much later, Hinami takes Tomozaki back to class and says that what happened with Nakamura was a necessity because he is holding a major grudge for the TACFEM defeat. Thankfully, she managed to turn it into a joke because everyone else was too scared to talk about it. As Tomozaki realizes just how goated Hinami is, she calls him dumb for shining his rusty teeth at Kikuchi and casually blowing his nose in front of everyone. However, since he accomplished the day's task, she lets him off the hook. The next morning, they are back in the classroom working on Tomozaki's posture so he stops looking like an underfed gorilla. When Hinami suddenly grabs his cheeks, he panics, but she claims it's all part of the process. She also tells him to continue working on his smile without the mask. For his new task, he has to actively get into conversations with her and any guy she is hanging out with. This will make his girlfriend goal a lot easier, as she will be able to monitor the reactions of any girl he talks to. Several hours later, he joins the girls on their walk home with two other guys, and when they start talking about the gym, Tomozaki asks if they train their cheeks as well. They all get shocked by the question, so Hinami swoops in to save him again. Minutes later, at the train station, Tomozaki thanks her for the help, but she tells him to save it because he still has to go home alone with Nanami since they live in the same area. After they talk, Tomozaki heads out with Nanami and manages to keep his cool. When he asks why she always has so much energy, she says it's the best way to live, especially through the hard times. Tomozaki notes that Hinami also talks about the effect of always having a positive mental state. Nanami then asks why he seems awfully close to Hinami these days, but Tomozaki tells her not to even go there because Hinami could never like a loser like him. After Nanami agrees, Tomozaki says he can't relate to her way of life because he doesn't like having fun all the time, even when he is playing TACFEM. Nanami then says he is a lot similar to Tama because she never bends her principles or beliefs just to go with the crowd. After saying that it's why she always tries to protect Tama, they get to her neighborhood, so she leaves. The next morning, Hinami commends Tomozaki for succeeding and says his ability to speak his mind is his strong suit. Hinami also asks if he noticed anything while hanging out with him yesterday. Tomozaki then explains how people like her and Nanami are always at the top of the group because Nanami always has something new to talk about, and she mostly explains it in a way everyone can enjoy. When Hinami says he is exactly right, Tomozaki asks why she always says exactly with a weird H at the start. Hinami then explains that it's from a game called Onki she used to play years ago. When he remembers the game, she gets excited that he also knows it, but quickly locks in again to give him a new task. He will basically spend the rest of the week starting conversations the way she and Nanami would. To help with that, she already prepared notes on several topics he can choose from, and also a recording of their conversation, so he gets used to speaking freely. With that out of the way, she says they will be spending Saturday together so he can learn even more. Days later, Tomozaki rushes down to the mall and apologizes to Hinami for being late. She eventually decides to let it slide since he finally made some effort, not look like a homeless scrub. Tomozaki then asks why she even wanted to spend today with him, but Hinami responds with a look that sends shivers down his spine. Minutes later, she explains how they are basically creating his fashion sense since he clearly has none. For starters, she tells him to pick a mannequin with the outfit he likes best. After he chooses one, she tells him to try on the full outfit, but he panics because he has to go ask one of the store attendants. Hinami notices and tells him to grow some nuts because he literally just has to ask to try it on. Tamazaki accepts and starts mumbling the line, but when the attendant tries to help, this dingus asks if he can buy the entire mannequin. Much later, they get to a restaurant, and Hinami says it's just a break before they leave for his hair appointment. After deciding on what to order, she asks to share some of his food because she has an ungodly obsession with cheese. She then asks if he listened to the recording, and he admits that his voice always sounds like a terrified outcast. Hinami commends him for noticing and says he just needs to pay attention to the way he talks going forward. She further explains that he uses way too many words and almost no emotion when he talks, which is why he sounds like a broken record. To fix this, she tells him to comment about the food with expressions instead of words. This way, he can learn to show his emotions better. Just then, their food is carried out, but when the waitress calls his name, Tamazaki is shocked to see that it's Kikuchi. Hinami is also surprised since she didn't know that Kikuchi works here. When Kikuchi notes that they both seem awfully close these days, Hinami claims their friendship started in the home economics class, and Tamazaki quickly agrees. After she serves their meal and leaves, Hinami gets excited and says Kikuchi might be the one. Tomazaki is confused by this until she says that Kikuchi is the perfect chick for his mission to get a girlfriend. Naturally, Tomazaki gets scared at the thought of this, but Hinami assures him that it's possible because when he asked Izumi for a napkin the other day, Kikuchi already had hers out, waiting to be asked. This makes him feel a little optimistic, but he also worries that he might not like her enough to want a relationship. Hinami then says the whole point of dating is to know just how much he likes her for sure. Tomazaki still insists that the whole thing feels a little dishonest, but he promises to give it his best shot. Later that night, he realizes that barbers are the real magicians, but then his sister shows up to tell him something. The next day, he meets Hinami and excitedly explains how his sister noticed the recent changes. Hinami congratulates him on accomplishing the goal, but she also gets creeped out by his overexcitement. When he says all he really did was obey her instructions, she agrees that was mostly because of her guidance, but he has also been making a real effort to complete the tasks, which counts for something. With that out of the way, she gives him a new task to hang out with a girl besides her. Tamazaki panics and says that's like going on a date, but Hinami says that only inexperienced dweebs think of hanging out as a date. She then makes his new target, Izumi, and he has to talk to her every day to achieve this task. When he asks why she didn't choose Kikuchi, Hinami explains how being close to multiple girls makes his social status increase, making it a lot easier to bag a chick way out of his league. Despite this, Tamazaki hesitates and says it feels a lot like trying to become a playboy, but Hinami says an inexperienced nerd like him shouldn't worry about magically becoming a player. Much later, in class, he tries to break the ice with Izumi by pointing out something funny from an assignment they got earlier this week. Unfortunately, she hasn't done the assignment and has no idea what he is talking about. This shatters the little confidence Tamazaki had built up, so his brain scrambles for a new conversation topic until he gives up. To make matters worse, Hinami sends a text that she will be a little late to their usual afternoon meeting. Using that opportunity, he decides to try again after classes, but just as Izumi walks past him, he panics. Much later, Hinami says it's not a problem because he would have succeeded if Hinami had done the assignment. He also has the rest of the week to keep trying, but Tamazaki is already discouraged. Hinami notices, so she smacks him and says it's way too early for him to give up. She reminds him that it was never going to be easy, so he decides to spend the rest of the week trying and failing at his conversation skills. After yet another horrible attempt at making small talk, Tomazaki heads to the library to wallow in self-hatred, but then Kikuchi walks up to him. She has apparently noticed that he is always here in between classes, reading books. Tamazaki immediately gets worried because he has just been grabbing the nearest book to look like a model student, and now Kikuchi thinks he likes the same author she does. He decides to play along for a little bit, but then she suddenly tells him about a novel she is writing. As he tries to process the weight of this information, she asks if he can read it before seeing his expression and immediately apologizing for suddenly bringing it up. After Tomazaki assures her that it won't be a problem, Kikuchi makes him promise to keep it a secret between them and leaves. Much later, Hinami is surprised to hear it and says it's a bit unfair since Kikuchi doesn't know that he only loves games. However, she says it's also the best way to get close to her and tells Tamazaki not to use the whole sincerity thing to escape the work he has to do. After he agrees, she says he already failed the week's task, but since he made the effort every day, he gets to try again with more experience. Minutes later, Tamazaki gets to his locker and spots Izume sitting all alone with a gloomy face. Despite already failing the task, he goes over to ask why she looks so sad, but Izume gets defensive, so he apologizes and turns to leave. The next moment, she asks him to teach her how to play takfem, which surprises him. After that weird confrontation, Tamazaki walks home with Izumi that early evening, and she tells him that she used to walk home with Nakamura a lot. She tells him that it all ended because lately, he's always busy practicing takfem after school, and Tamazaki figures that it's so he could finally beat him. Izume continues, saying that when she told Nakamura that she would love to play too, he told her that she was too weak and not worth his time. Because of this, she got her own copy and practiced on her own. Tamazaki asks her if she's seeing any improvements, but she pauses and tells him that she doesn't get Nakamura because a popular girl named Erika asked him out and he rejected her. Tamazaki identifies this popular girl as Erika Kano, a member of Team Nekti and a leader personality in Izume's friend group. Izumi adds that since Nakamura hangs out with her a lot, she thought he liked her, but he asked her to stop following him around instead, so she asks Tamazaki what he thinks. Tamazaki hesitates, then asks if the reason she wants him to teach her takfem is so she can take on Nakamura, and she confirms. He asks her where they would practice, and she says her house, which makes him freak out since he's so much of a virgin. Much later, at Izumi's house, the two just finish playing around, and Izumi is utterly shocked at how cracked Tamazaki is in this game. She wonders if he spent all his social points on his gaming skills, but he tells her that she was moving like a textbook beginner. He starts explaining in geeky, nerdy language, which is nothing but background noise to her hearing, until he startles her and gives her a task. Tamazaki shows her the short jump, which isn't the same as the regular jump, and he tells her that she needs to master this technique to get good. Izume attempts it, but she's as good as a jumping bean and not a fighter. Tamazaki tells her that it's harder than it looks, so he puts his hand in his bag and pulls out a stopwatch. He tells her that he takes it everywhere for practice and asks her to observe his geeky introvert magic tricks. He clicks the stopwatch to activate it, but when he clicks it a second time, it doesn't stop. He explains that this is because, just like his social skills, the stopwatch is busted, and that too short a button press won't stop it. He hands it to her, and after a few tries, she finally manages to click it without stopping it, so she asks him what she's going to be doing with it, and he tells her that she's going to practice button mashing on the stopwatch every day, whenever she's not with other people. Then he tells her to practice a lot, but she asks him what's up with his body movements, and that's when Tamazaki realizes that he might have been learning a tad bit too much from Hinami, so he gets super embarrassed. Next, he tells her that she's going to need a lot of memorization, so he shows her a game that he saved between two top players, and asks her to memorize it so she can use it to face Nakamura. She wonders how jobless she has to be to learn every single move of one character, but Tamazaki shows her that there are levels to this joblessness as he pulls out a notebook and draws every single move of every character. Izumi finds it weird and asks what the point is of being so good, since it's going to make the game boring for everyone and would make them see him as a weirdo. But Tamazaki tells her that although he cares what people think about him, he's more set on his goals. He explains that he's had the same personality since he was born. That's until he ran into this gamer who told him that life's a god-tier game. Therefore, he's got to take this game more seriously. And because of that, he changed, so she can change too. The next day, Tamazaki is having lunch with Hinami, and she asks him if he managed to ask Kikuchi on a date or if he chickened out as expected. He tells her that he has decided on what to do, so she hands him tickets to a movie and asks him to use them. Later that night, he replays his cringeworthy conversation with Kikuchi that could give clowns secondhand embarrassment. He observes that he came on too strong and has to be more casual, then he accidentally drops the recorder, and when he catches it, it starts to play another conversation from Hinami. After listening, he is amazed by how hard she works to be that way. The next day, in class, Tamazaki is impressed by how much Izume has improved. Then, later in the library, Tamazaki sits down next to Kikuchi, and he confesses to her that he had never read any of the books he claimed to have. He said he had only taken them because they were the closest to his seat, and he was pretending to read while formulating game strategies in his head. He apologizes for making her think he was less of a boring loser, and suggests meeting up in the library some other time to have a regular conversation. She giggles and agrees, and Tamazaki ends up deciding this is what he would tell Hinami. Just as he's leaving, he gets stopped by two of Nakamura's goons, who bring him to an empty classroom to play takfam with Nakamura. Before they can start, some chicks walk in, arriving just in time to watch the worthless gamer loser kick Nakamura's behind over and over and over again. Nakamura, being the sore loser that he is, doesn't get tired, despite the girls wanting to leave. Nakamura gets beaten so much, the girls start to worry for him, and just as he is about to ask for another game, the Kira girl interrupts, calling him weird for having such an obsession. She goes on saying a lot of things, but Tomazaki steps in when she calls the game stupid. He tells her off for insulting the game and downplaying Nakamura's efforts in getting better. After all the yelling, she just calls him a weirdo. But Izume steps in and nervously defends them both, saying that she enjoys the game too. Kira tells her that she's boring as well and walks out with her two friends. But on the bright side, Nakamura consoles Izume and gives her his attention again. Later that night, Tomazaki and Hinami have dinner together, and she brings up Kikuchi. Tomazaki pulls out the same tickets that she handed him and shows them to her like an Uno reverse card, asking her out instead. She tells him that she's occupied for the next day, but she's free now, so they could go see a different movie. The virgin loser feels a first-time elation of going out with a girl, and they both leave. During the weekend, while everyone is out singing some karaoke, Tomazaki is locked up in his room again, plugging away at TACFEM. He remembers that after the movie he saw with Hinami yesterday, they went to the post-movie cafe to chat a bit. She advised him to add emotions when asking Kikuchi to the movies, and to stop staring like he's an in-game unlockable character. Tomazaki heard her advice, but because of this, he beat her with absolutely no mercy in TACFEM. After he ended her hopes and dreams, he got another message from No Name, asking if he wanted to play another round. Then he played old conversations from the recorder, going over everything he had learned about this game called life. The next day, in class, Izumi surprises Tomazaki by telling him that she now knows all the moves by heart. She asks if she's able to take on Nakamura now, but instead of giving her a yes or no answer, Tomazaki asks her if she's aware that his birthday is around the corner, which completely throws her off. She asks him how he knew about it, and tells him that it's a month away, so it's not around the corner, and this causes the awkward virgin to wish Hinami would just intervene again. After some time, Takahiro walks up to Tomazaki and asks him if he's got a minute to spare. He tells him that he really liked how he confronted Kira the other day, and he thought that what he did was really cool. He asks him if he really feels that way, though, because most people would view someone who's too serious as a freak, but he thinks what he said was really great, and he feels the same way. Later, in the sewing room, Tomazaki tells Hinami everything that Takahiro told him. He suggested they go grab a bite sometime, and said that he could invite Hinami and another girl to make it a foursome. Hinami says it's perfect and asks Tomazaki to invite that girl. Tomazaki thinks of which approachable girl he can invite and asks Hinami if he can invite Izume. Hinami asks him why her, and he tells her that she wants to get Nakamura a birthday present, so her meeting with Takahiro for advice would be perfect. They both agree that it's a good idea, but the next day, Tomazaki is surprised to get turned down by Izumi, saying that she wouldn't want to drag everyone along on her shopping trip. Tomazaki analyzes the situation like a robot that's learning to become human, and goes brainstorming to rescue the situation. He makes it even more awkward by saying that he wants to get Nakamura a present too, since they're both TACFEM players. It's only right that they get along more. Izumi goes mute for a while, then tells him that it's a great idea. She puts her hands on his introvert shoulders and tells him that since she's friends with Nakamura and she's friends with him too, the two of them shouldn't be fighting. She apologizes for getting too excited and asks him to count her in, and Tomazaki thinks to himself that she's way too nice. Later, Tomazaki gets stopped by Takahiro, who tells him that he heard the news about him asking Izume out. Takahiro awkwardly gets up close and asks Tomazaki if he's up to something. He says that he had his suspicions, pointing at how he takes care of his hair more. And he's more outspoken when talking to women. So he reaches one conclusion and asks him if he's been reading a de-geekification book, but Tomazaki brushes it off. Later at night, Tomazaki is having dinner with his sister when he gets a notification on his phone. He picks it up to see that Hinami added him to a group chat specifically made for getting Nakamura a birthday present. He's surprised to see that Izumi and Takahiro are already in the group chat, so he has no choice but to accept the invitation. Later, in his room, he sits and tells himself to stop fretting over an invitation like a sad geek would do and just join already. He finally accepts, and everyone welcomes him immediately. They all agree on Saturday, and after thinking about it, Tomazaki gives his approval as well. Saturday finally rolls around, and Tomazaki is already in the mall with Hinami, being such a bummed introvert already. Hinami asks him to give it up, and says that it's his fault for turning a simple lunch into a shopping trip. She adds that he might as well use this opportunity to do the task that she gave him. Just as she's talking, Takahiro shows up, and she immediately greets him, surprising Tomazaki with how fast she changed her demeanor. Izumi shows up and apologizes for being late, and Takahiro jokes that she's going to pay for ice cream since she's late. Hinami steps up to Takahiro in Izumi's defense, and Tomazaki starts analyzing the situation like a rusty clanker again. Then he realizes that he has been standing there like a background character, having said no words since Takahiro and Izumi arrived. Once they get into the store, Izume asks Tomozaki what kind of gift she should get for Nakamura, and he tells her to think of what Nakamura actually likes instead of grabbing something random. While they're talking, Izume suddenly notices that ever since they met up, Takahiro has been glued to Hinami and is barely paying attention to anyone else. She tells Tomozaki that she has heard rumors in school about them possibly dating. This makes Tomozaki think for a bit, then he decides to let it go since he's supposed to focus on the mission at hand and not gossip like two bored cheerleader girls. He reminds himself that his unfortunate goal is to control the mood of the group and guide things for a while. But that plan meets its end when Takahiro suddenly suggests they go to a hair gel store since Izume has decided that hair gel is the perfect gift for Nakamura. Takahiro then starts showing off how much he knows about hair products and even suggests that Tomozaki should start using hair gel too. Tomozaki tells him that he has already decided on the gift he's getting for Nakamura, so they head to a video game store instead. After that, Takahiro suggests stopping by a place that sells cheese pizza. Hearing this, Tomozaki realizes that he's not the only one who knows that Hinami really likes cheese, and now the rumors start to make even more sense to him. The next morning, Tomozaki meets Hinami in the sewing room to talk about how the mission totally flopped. She explains to him that when it comes to making suggestions in a group, it is not about having the best idea, but who can sell their idea better. This surprises Tomozaki because he finally understands that being right means nothing if no one listens to him, which is normal, actually. Later in class, the teacher announces that the student council is looking for new members, and anyone interested can apply. Hinami immediately stands up and volunteers, and Nanami stands up right after her. With that, the two of them officially become rivals for a spot on the student council. Later that day, in the sewing room, Tomozaki and Hinami meet up as usual to discuss what's up. She tells him that they'll pause their meetings here during the student council election, and Tomozaki agrees that it makes sense, due to her having a lot on her plate, and his plate being as empty as his social life. Hinami also reveals to him that he's going to be Nanami's campaign manager, and explains that she was going to make him her campaign manager initially, and tell him after the fact. But now that Nanami has joined the race, there's a change of plans, so he's going to be campaigning for her instead. She further explains that when it comes to conversations, Nanami is his best model, so he's bound to level up his communication skills at her side, and maybe stop sounding like an outdated Android phone. Hearing this, Tomozaki tells her that he doesn't feel like he can support Nanami and asks what would happen if she loses because of him. Hinami tells him that even though he's aware of his sad, bad luck aura, in the end, who her campaign manager is doesn't matter, simply because Tama can't beat her. The next day rolls around, and Tomozaki bumps into Nanami while on his way to class. He starts off very nervous and ends up embarrassing himself, but this just makes Nanami laugh. His brain goes through some mental gymnastics before he decides to bring up the campaign manager thing to her, but he presents in the lamest way possible, so she politely rejects, shooting a dagger through his pathetic heart by telling him that he's just a tad unreliable. After taking such a ginormous L, Tomozaki goes to the library to be depressed. He is so depressed that he can't help but admire the cover of the book he's meant to be reading, and he ends up even quieter than the whole library. So Kikuchi asks him what's up. He tells her that he finds it weird that Nanami suddenly decided to run for the student council, and Kikuchi says that she thinks Nanami might be doing all this because she wants to change herself. After that, Tomozaki cannot get Kikuchi's comment out of his head and starts thinking about how crazy it is that someone as popular as Nanami would even want a personality update like she has a bad character build. The next morning, Nanami is posted at the school entrance campaigning, like it's for the Hokage's position. She spots Tomozaki and walks over to greet him, then introduces him to her track and field friend Yumi, whom she picked as her campaign manager. Tomozaki gets why she chose her and then heads into the school. While walking in, he notices that Takahiro is now Hinami's partner and that both of them are clearly grinding for votes like tryhards. After class, Nanami meets Tomozaki again and hands him her campaign poster. He takes a good look at it and suggests fixing the layout so it's easier to read and not a visual mess like his social interactions. After he's done, he shows it to Nanami, and she likes the result, so he uses that moment to offer himself again as her campaign manager. Nanami agrees, but first, she wants to know why he is so interested in helping her. Tomozaki explains that, as a game-obsessed loser, he likes the feeling of taking down strong opponents, so helping her beat Hinami sounds fun to him. Tomozaki then comes up with a plan that actually impresses Nanami, so they print an extra poster to go with the original one, and after that, they head to the volleyball club. Once inside, Nanami goes straight to her friend Tama and starts messing with her in her usual over-the-top way. When another classmate comes over and bonks her head, asking her to stop bothering Tama, Nanami uses the moment to talk about her campaign plan. After hearing it, everyone there agrees to support her and vote for her in the student council election. Later, Tomozaki and Nanami head to a park near the school to talk about how things are going. He spots her stuffed toy and asks her about it, and she tells him that she bought it because it was cute and it was love at first sight, something Tomozaki has never experienced in his pathetic life. Nanami asks him what they're doing tomorrow, and Tomozaki explains that his plan for the election is to focus on a small group and go all in on them instead of going all out trying to win over everyone at once. Nanami gets curious and asks him why he is really going to such lengths to beat Hinami, but Tomozaki dodges the question like a pro and flips it around, asking why she decided to go against Hinami as well. She then turns the interaction into quiz time and asks him if he knows what the biggest mountain in Japan is. He answers that it's Mount Fuji, and she follows up by asking what the second biggest mountain is, but he has no idea, so she tells him that it's Mount Kita. She then asks him who the first president of the United States is, which he answers correctly, but he can't answer the follow-up question, which is who the second president was. After that, she asks if he remembers who won the May sports test. He says it was Hinami, but when she asks who came in second, his brain goes empty again, like his inbox. Nanami tells him that this is because everyone remembers number 1, and nobody cares about number 2. Before he can say anything, she admits that she came in second place in both sports and class grades, and because of that, her whole goal now is to change herself and aim for first place instead of being the forever runner-up. The next morning, Nanami is full of energy thanks to how things have been going with Tomozaki helping her out. Meanwhile, Hinami has already pushed way ahead in the votes and is always surrounded by people, as if they don't seem to realize who the main character actually is. After that, Tomozaki heads to the volleyball court to ask Tama for help with sound checks, which is part of his next election plan. Tama does not even ask what he's planning and just tells him to look after Nanami, because she tends to push herself way too hard when chasing a goal. Later, it turns out that Tomozaki's big strategy is to visit the first-year classrooms and ask for votes by promising air conditioners in their rooms. Since they're new, they've got absolutely no idea how impossible that is, but that doesn't stop them from believing that it could actually happen. She also promises the sports clubs a ball pump, and with that, Tomozaki hands her what would be her final campaign speech, while Hinami watches her friend carefully plan her downfall from above. Nanami loves the speech, and to show her gratitude, she tries hitting Tomozaki again, but he's quick to dodge this time, and even goes out of character to tease her for being too slow. The next morning, Tomozaki and Hinami stroll down a hallway together. After not hanging out for a while, Hinami tells him that he sure is putting in the work, and Tomozaki replies that it's because they're up against her, the final boss of overachieving students. Hinami giggles and tells him that the past few days have been dull since she hasn't gotten much of a chance to face off against Nanami and Takfim. Later in the auditorium, Takahiro is dropping a hard speech in the name of campaigning for Hinami, though it looks more like he's simping. After he's done misleading people on stage, he tags Hinami in, and she goes to finish up what he started. She addresses the students, telling them that thinking that no real change would happen no matter who they choose is absolutely right. This makes everyone laugh, causing both Nanami and Tomozaki to worry about her already winning the crowd. They're intimidated by how well she's got the crowd in a chokehold, but Tomozaki reminds her of their plan not necessarily to get everyone's votes, but to get the athletes with the ball pump and the first graders with air conditioners. However, Hinami starts listing out all the students' complaints and promises to deal with every single one of them, including providing electrical ball pumps and putting air conditioners in all the classrooms. This completely throws Tomozaki and Nanami off, since that was literally their whole plan, and she just stole it like Swiper. After her speech, the crowd gets fired up and starts buzzing, which puts Nanami in a rough spot. When it's her turn, she wings her speech using Tomozaki's plan as a base. In the middle of it, an artificial intelligence voice suddenly plays from everywhere at once, which catches the students' attention since it sounds like the school itself started talking. She gets her big moment, but not as hard as they hoped, because Hinami's earlier speech already did too much damage, and after that, all they can do is wait for the results. When the votes are counted, Hinami wins by a huge gap, leaving no room for debate. Later on, Tomozaki and Nanami still go out to mark the end of the election, like it was a failed but educational side quest. They promise each other that they will keep improving and come back stronger to beat Hinami someday. The next morning, Tomozaki and Hinami go back to their usual routine of meetings. Hinami admits that she was impressed by his election strategy, but says that if he really wanted to beat her, he should have been more subtle instead of announcing his move before a fight like it's Dragon Ball Z. Tomozaki says that it's time to move on to his next task, which is asking a girl out. After that, he meets Kikuchi in the library, and they spend time reading Andy's books together. Tomozaki then starts talking to Kikuchi and mentions that Andy's new movie is coming out over the weekend, and he asks if she wants to go see it with him. Kikuchi happily agrees, glad that she can share her love for the author with someone else. Later, Tomozaki realizes that what started as an excuse to talk to Kikuchi has turned into a real interest in Andy's books. He gets so into reading that he loses track of time. And once classes end, he notices Tama leaning out of a school window, watching someone outside. Tama tells him that ever since Nanami lost the election a few days ago, she has been going extra hard at club practice, like she is trying to literally speedrun self-improvement. Tomozaki then notices Nanami practicing on the school field with Hinami, but he can't get her attention at all. Tama admits that she is a bit scared of going up against Hinami, since beating her feels impossible. Tomozaki says that he is just glad that Nanami is brave enough to face her instead of backing out. The next morning, Tomozaki meets Hinami as usual to talk about his progress in the game of life. She tells him that Nanami has been trying even harder at club practice lately, to the point where she shows up before her. Later, Tomozaki runs into Nanami in the hallway, and she jokes about how nervous he looks just from seeing her and asks if he finally worked up the courage to confess his love. He tells her to chill and stop messing with him, then tells her that he heard from Hinami that she has been improving a lot at practice. He tells her that he is rooting for her rivalry with Hinami, and she thanks him for it, then invites him to eat with her in the cafeteria. Tomozaki turns her down and chooses the school store instead because he's got an affinity for remaining a sad, lonely loser. That afternoon, Tomozaki meets Tama again while she is watching Hinami and Nanami practice. He asks if Nanami has always been the type to go this hard when she wants to exceed expectations. Tama admits that she has not known Nanami for very long, and that they only started talking after Nanami approached her first. She explains that they became friends thanks to Hiname, who suggested that Nanami start pulling small pranks to get closer to her, something she really appreciated. Because of that, Nanami slowly made more friends in class and started feeling comfortable at school. Because of this, she thinks that people who are good at making friends are really amazing, and she kinda wished she could be like that. Later that evening, on their way home, they go to grab some drinks, and Nanami is playing around like a spoiled brat, despite taking another massive L from Hinami. In a flashback, a younger Nanami goes up against Hinami in a basketball game during the school games. That day was their first real clash, and Hinami's school ended up winning as expected. Even so, Nanami's loser classmates were happy with the result, which annoyed her a lot. Back in the present, Nanami pushes herself way too hard with studying until her body blue screens on her. Once she wakes up, she still goes out to train around her neighborhood like rest is optional. Then the next morning, the teacher scolds her for sleeping in class, which she denies by saying she only passed out for a moment. Tomozaki and Tama notice something is off right away, since this kind of behavior is not normal for Nanami at all. Later on, like usual, Tomozaki goes to the library and meets Kikuchi there to read their favorite author, Andy. While they are reading, Kikuchi says that she has noticed Nanami looking worn out ever since she lost the election. Tomozaki asks if she thinks Nanami is trying to compete with Hinami. He asks her who told her that, but she explains that she did not hear it from anyone, but she likes thinking about why people act the way they do. She says this kind of thinking helps her write characters, but when it comes to Hinami, she cannot figure out what really drives her. After that, Tomozaki meets up with Tama again to watch Nanami practice like it's the Super Bowl warm-up. Once practice ends, they all head out together, and when Tomozaki finally gets Nanami alone, he asks if she has been pushing herself this hard because she still wants to be Hinami. Nanami admits that she actually wants to quit, but since she has already tried so hard, stopping now would feel stupid, like Tomozaki when he's not gaming. Tomozaki encourages her again and tells her he is fully backing her, even if she is clearly running on pure stubborn energy. The next morning, Hinami shows up for early club practice and is surprised to see that Nanami has already arrived before her. They start training, but in the middle of it, Nanami starts falling around because she's distracted by thoughts about how Hinami has always beaten her no matter what she does. Later in the sewing room, Tomozaki meets Hinami, and she tells him that she's worried about Nanami, feeling like she is going to collapse soon if she keeps pushing herself this hard. Tomozaki asks why Nanami is so obsessed with beating her, and Hinami admits that back in middle school, she was the reason Nanami's team lost, but she says that this is not her story to tell. Because of that, Tomozaki decides to go ask her friend, Yumi, so he can hear what really happened. That afternoon, Tomozaki meets Tama again to watch Nanami and Hinami train, but the weather gods rain, so they assume practice is cancelled, and everyone is going home. Then they spot someone walking onto the field anyway, like rain is just a background effect. They move closer, thinking it's Nanami, but it turns out to be Hinami, still training like the final boss she is, while Nanami already went home. Somewhere else, Nanami is feeling down and looking discouraged, mainly because she already skipped morning practice that day. The next day, after classes, Tama asks Nanami if she is going to train, and Nanami says she will go later, but Tomozaki notices that she also skipped afternoon practice, so he decides to chase after her, He catches up to her at the subway station and tells her he now knows about her rivalry with Hinami. Nanami explains that she figured out a long time ago that she does not shine the same way Hinami does, no matter how hard she tries. It all started when she lost to Hinami and tried to match everyone's mood by smiling through it as if nothing happened. After that loss, she pushed herself all the way to the finals of another tournament, where Hinami's team ended up losing. But unlike her, Hinami openly showed her frustration and kept chasing being number one like her life depended on it. Since that day, Nanami admits that Hinami is the person she admires the most, and that is exactly why she does not want to lose to her. Tomozaki listens to all this and tells her that, from his point of view, she shines a lot already, even if she cannot see it herself. After saying that, Tomozaki realizes his words did not really fix anything, because encouragement from a known virgin loser can only do so much. The next morning, during his usual meeting with Hinami, she tells him that Nanami skipped practice again. Tomozaki then tells Hinami that he does not really get her obsession with always being first, since to him, improving yourself matters more than being number one. Hinami is clearly surprised by this, because she thought Tomozaki was on the same grind as her. Not long after, Nanami officially asks to leave the athletics club, which immediately makes Hinami turn to her and ask what's up. Nanami explains that her body needs rest and that she wants to step away for a while, which sounds reasonable. After class, Tomozaki somehow gathers the courage to ask Nanami to go home together in front of the whole class, adding that Tama will come too. On the way to the station, they sit by the river, and Tama asks Nanami why she really left the club. Nanami finally admits that she is jealous of Hinami, who beats her at basically everything, and she does not want to keep feeling that way, so she rage quit and chose distance instead. After hearing her out, Tama tells her that it does not matter if she is not the best at everything, because to her, she is her hero. She also adds that if Nanami really wants to be number one at something, then she is officially the number one idiot, which somehow works better than therapy. The next morning, Nanami apologizes to her track teammates and returns to the club, and after that talk, she starts teasing Tama even more than before, doubling the harassment like it is her new hobby, and time keeps moving until summer break finally arrives. Before classes end, Tomozaki still has one last mission left, which is to deliver Nakamura's birthday gift and talk to him for at least 3 minutes. Tomozaki somehow gathers the courage to talk to Nakamura and give him the controller that he bought him, but before he can escape, Hinami waves at him from the other end of the room, reminding him that the mission is not over yet and that he still has to keep talking. After even more mental gymnastics, Tomozaki spits out the first thing that enters his head and asks Nakamura if the rumors about Hinami and Takahiro dating are true. Much later, at the cafe, Nanami is making fun of Tomozaki for his earlier performance and uses that moment to ask Hinami if the rumors are actually true, and Hinami shuts it down by saying they are not. Nanami then drops the topic, apologizes for how she acted before, and moves on as if nothing happened. After that, she hands them some keychains for their bags as a small sign of friendship. Once summer break starts, Tomozaki pulls up to the mall to meet Hinami, but she doesn't hesitate to tell him that he's dressed in a very pathetic manner. He says that he doesn't have any new summer clothes, but Hinami tells him that they are doing a mock date because his new task is asking Kikuchi out, so the virgin loser is back in tutorial mode. Later, Hinami hands him a to-do list for the date and keeps acting like she has no idea where he is taking her, even though she clearly planned everything. Their first stop is a clothing store, because Tomozaki's summer clothes look like the cheapest on Roblox. After that, Hinami shows him a bag she has been carrying and tells him she noticed he needs one too. Tomozaki refuses the bag at first because accepting gifts makes his social anxiety spike, but Hinami explains that she was going to throw it away anyway, since it is a bit worn out, and that kind of thing bothers her. She also makes it clear that it's not free and tells him to buy her something in return. Tomozaki quickly figures out she is doing this so he does not feel indebted, so he accepts it just to keep things normal. After that, they go to a game store and play a round of TAC-FAM, where Tomozaki defeats her as expected, because that is literally the only thing he can smash a girl at. They then stop by a cafe, where Hinami gives him Kikuchi's number. He hesitates to add it, because he's worried about how it would look if he suddenly showed up in her contacts like a jump scare. Hinami tells him she already asked Kikuchi for permission, so he saves the number. But the real problem is sending the first message, which Hinami leaves entirely to him to figure out. She tells him to relax since Kikuchi usually replies slowly, but Tomozaki immediately tells her that Kikuchi already replied, and they even set up a date to watch Annie's movie, catching Hinami off guard because it's indeed a miracle. Right after that, Hinami tells him to keep the weekend free because he is coming with her group to a barbecue meant to fix things between Nakamura and Izumi. Hearing this, Tomozaki feels overloaded by the idea of dealing with that many people at once and starts doubting his ability to survive humans. Hinami assures him that it's a good chance to make friends and level up his conversation skills, and Tomozaki realizes that she actually put effort into including him, so he agrees to go. Before they split up, Hinami tells him that the next day they will have a strategy meeting at Nanami's house and that his mission there is to stand up to Takahiro at least 3 times, or else he will turn into the guy everyone makes fun of for agreeing with everything. She explains that light teasing and pushing back when you disagree is how people stay on equal ground instead of becoming background characters like he is. The next morning, Takahiro arrives first at the meeting spot, leaving Tomozaki alone with him for a bit. Takahiro jokes about how Tomozaki must have a fashion advisor now, helping him escape the loser lifestyle, and Tomozaki realizes that he's being teased and starts wondering if he is even ready to deal with someone like that. Soon after, Hinami shows up, and they all head toward Nanami's house, but Nanami tells them that they can't meet there because her grandma showed up out of nowhere, so Hinami decides that they should just go to Tomozaki's house instead, since it's nearby. Once they get there, Tomozaki's sister is shocked when she sees some of the most popular students at school standing in her house, and she immediately runs to tell their mom that Tomozaki brought friends home. Their mom can't believe it either and decides this miracle deserves cake, so she goes out to buy one for everyone. Takahiro says that Tomozaki's family seems fun, and Tomozaki tells him that was definitely not meant as a compliment. Nanami then starts digging around Tomozaki's room like she is searching for forbidden treasure, but the only thing she finds is a box full of TACFAM controllers that look like they have been through years of suffering. Tomozaki explains that he feels bad throwing them away since they still work fine for other games, and Takahiro notices Hinami staring a bit too hard at the controllers, so she immediately pretends not to care. They finally get down to planning how to push Nakamura and Izumi together, and Nanami says that they need to take a brave walk through the suspension bridge, like this is some romance quest. Takahiro adds that since it is a barbecue, they should all make the fire together. Tomozaki realizes this is his cue to mess with him again, so he explains that it is a bad idea because starting a fire has a high difficulty level. Takahiro then says that they should hurry with all this, since once classes start again, exams will keep them busy and they will not get to hang out much. Later, Tomozaki goes to the kitchen to grab some water, and thinks about how serious everyone is about fixing Nakamura and Izume. On the way back, he runs into Takahiro near the bathroom, who tells him that he saw the hairstyling cream and says that it doesn't look like he uses it much. Tomozaki admits that he's still learning how to use it, which makes Takahiro ask him to show his method. Tomozaki starts combing his hair and immediately shows that he's a noob even at combing, so Takahiro steps in and offers to teach him properly. Tomozaki asks him to wait a second because he wants to record what he is saying so he can practice later, fully exposing how much of a tryhard he is. Takahiro then tells him that he has noticed how serious Tomozaki is about things, like when he helped Nanami during the student council election. Tomozaki explains that he hates losing and sees himself as a player, not just in games, but in general. Takahiro says he gets it, since life feels like a game too if you think about it. When they go back to the room, the girls immediately notice that Tomozaki's hair looks different, and on top of that, Takahiro starts calling him by his first name, which feels like a quiet, zesty relationship update. The next morning, Tomozaki heads out to meet Kikuchi, and when he sees her show up, he is genuinely surprised she actually came. After the movie, they go to a restaurant, and Tomozaki realizes that he has not stopped talking since they left the theater. Kikuchi points out that it's sometimes hard to talk to him because he suddenly switches how he acts like a Sims character. On the train ride home, they sit in silence until Kikuchi says she hopes he did not take what she said the wrong way, since she had a lot of fun and wants to go out with him again. While heading home, Tomozaki gets a call from Hinami, who somehow figures out the exact moment the date ended. He tells her how it went, and she suggests he keep working on his social skills to close the gap between him and Kikuchi. That same night, Tomozaki decides to invite Kikuchi to the New Year's Eve fireworks, and she accepts almost immediately. So now Tomozaki's stuck thinking about what Kikuchi said earlier. The next morning, Tomozaki waits for Nanami so they can head to the meeting point together with the other boys. On the way there, Nanami uses the quiet moment to thank him for helping her when she was feeling down, which catches him off guard because he's not used to emotional credit scenes. Once they meet up with the rest, the uninvited guest, Take, immediately takes a group photo. Tomozaki starts thinking about the plan to push Nakamura and Izume closer, but then realizes that Take is an imposter among them, because he wasn't even at the strategy meeting. Hinami tells him she left him out on purpose because he is too absent-minded and would not have helped much anyway. She then pulls Tomozaki aside and reminds him that his mission during this trip is to contradict Nakamura 3 times, and also to get closer to Takahiro, since he looks like the best candidate for an actual friendship and easy social experience points. When they arrive at the camping area, Hinami assigns tasks, and somehow, Tomozaki, the cold-shouldered guy, ends up in charge of starting the fire. When they get a moment alone, Tomozaki asks her what she really wanted to say, and Hinami explains that she did not pair people randomly, since Nakamura and Izume are best suited to handle the food. Setting up tents needs muscle, so Take is perfect, Takahiro is a natural leader, and Nanami can adjust to anything. This basically means that Tomozaki has no obvious specialty, which says a lot. She then admits that she gets tired of acting perfect all the time, so she paired with him so she could relax a bit for once. Later, Tomozaki watches the boys having fun and realizes that if he had not met Hinami, he would have thought this whole camping trip was as lame as his life, but now he can actually see the fun in it. After eating, the boys head to the river to bathe, and Tomozaki notices that the plan to bring Nakamura and Izume closer is going smoothly, so he tries to keep Take busy. Take slips away anyway and shows Izume a crayfish, which surprises her so much she almost falls, but Nakamura goes Superman mode and catches her in time while Take apologizes for scaring her. Watching that, Tomozaki kind of feels relieved because even that accident somehow helps the pairing plot. Later that night, the boys sit together in the campsite rooms, and Nakamura suddenly tries to send Tomozaki out to look for some random letters because he's the natural side character. Before that happens, Takahiro asks Nakamura about his ex-girlfriend, who still keeps messaging him to meet up even though she already has a new boyfriend. Tomozaki realizes in that moment that Nakamura operates on a completely different level socially, and he almost got reduced to errand boy status. Nakamura then says he is unsure what to do about his ex because it is hard to let go of a girl with that kind of body, which makes Tomozaki visibly react. Nakamura notices and asks what he is thinking, so Tomozaki says that if she is acting like that, then she's a cheater, and everyone starts laughing. Takahiro then asks Nakamura if he has someone else he likes, so Nakamura admits that he's not sure, since the girl he might like comes to him for romantic advice, which is peak irony. Later on, Takahiro and Tomozaki text the girls from their phones, and they find out that Izume asked the guy she likes for romantic advice, and since Nakamura told the boys the same thing earlier, they all realize the feelings are obviously mutual, and these two happen to be slower than Tomozaki. Right then, Take suddenly shows up and announces that it is time, which confuses Tomozaki until he figures out they are heading to the girls' room. When they get there, everyone just stands around staring at each other with zero plan and zero vibes, so Nanami suggests playing cards to rescue the mood from certain death. Soon enough, Tomozaki and Hinami turn it into a serious competition to see who can win the most rounds, and in the end, Hinami takes the lead, beating Tomozaki again and keeping her undefeated final boss status. Takahiro asks why they take a simple card game so seriously, and Take admits that he finished last in every round, like anyone is surprised. Izumi says she understands because she did even worse, basically ending up below beggar level in the rankings, and Nakamura makes fun of both of them for being terrible, so Tomozaki jumps in and says that if that is the case, then Nakamura must have ranked as a commoner. The room bursts into laughter, and Tomozaki celebrates landing another rare hit. Nakamura tries to shift attention, so he brings up how Takahiro has been flirting with a girl from another school. The girls immediately get excited and start asking questions, but Takahiro waves it off, saying that they only hang out sometimes and it's nothing serious. He then says that he needs to go to the bathroom, and everyone teases him for running away. Tomozaki suddenly says he needs to go to the bathroom too, giving his boy, Takahiro, a clean escape. In the bathroom area, Tomozaki asks Takahiro about that girl, and Takahiro admits that he does not actually like her that much, but he might still end up dating her anyway. Tomozaki tells him that it makes no sense, since being with someone you do not like is just extra work for no reason. Later, at the baths, the boys are stunned by Tomozaki's surprisingly massive tonnage, which no one expected from someone who only works out his thumbs. Take picks him up to show everyone his Thor hammer, and Tomozaki starts kicking until he falls into the water near Nakamura. Seeing his chance, Tomozaki looks at Nakamura and loudly says what he sees is tiny, instantly erupting the place with laughter. The noise is so loud that the girls hear it from their side and realize that those two are currently useless for any serious plan. Later, it is time for the main event. The brave walk through the dark forest meant to push Nakamura and Izumi closer. After sending the two lovebirds ahead, the rest play rock, paper, scissors to decide how they'll split up, and in the end, Hinami and Tomozaki end up alone together. Hinami tells him that this is perfect because she's going to use the moment for special training. She suddenly jumps toward him, placing her malicious melons on him and claiming that there was an insect nearby, but Tomozaki realizes that she is clearly trying to mess with him and test his reactions. While they keep walking, Tomozaki spots a cicada sitting on the ground and decides to scare it on purpose so it flies toward Hinami. It works, and she falls down, saying that she can't stand up because she is scared. When Tomozaki moves closer to help her, she suddenly wraps her arms around his neck and slowly leans her face toward his, turning the training session into something that feels way too advanced for the former virgin tutorial character. Tomozaki knows fully well that Hinami is clearly trying to mess with him, so he backs down first, and she declares herself the winner. On the way back to camp, he keeps thinking about what might have happened if he had not retreated, overanalyzing it like it was a near-death experience. When they regroup, Take records a video of everyone talking about their courage walk, like it is a slice-of-life documentary. They suddenly notice that something between Nakamura and Izumi feels different, but it does not look like they officially started dating. Takahiro then reveals that Nakamura admitted that he and Izumi agreed to spend more time together, so the boys feel a bit disappointed because they were hoping for a full confession scene, not a slow burn update. Hinami asks Takahiro to give her some advice since he has the most dating experience in the group, and she even cheers him on about the girl from the other school. Later that night, while everyone is asleep, Tomozaki gets a message from Hinami asking him to meet her. She immediately asks about his progress in the group and whether he completed his mission, so he starts listing the times he pushed back against Nakamura. First was in the room when Nakamura talked about his ex, and he called out the situation. Second was during the card game when he joked that Nakamura ranked like a commoner. He then hesitates about the third one, wondering if he should even say it. Hinami pushes him for the answer, so he admits that he made that joke about Nakamura's sprouting bean at the baths, which was definitely not subtle. Right then, they hear footsteps coming closer, and Tomozaki hides like the stealth stat suddenly activated. It turns out to be Takahiro, who greets Hinami and says that he had a feeling she was meeting Tomozaki. She tells him that it's not the case, and he sits down beside her anyway. Takahiro starts talking about Nakamura, Izumi, and even Tomozaki, saying that he respects how honestly they deal with their feelings, instead of playing it safe all the time. He then says that Tomozaki once told him that he sees life like a game, and that idea kinda stuck with him for a while. He adds that he sometimes feels like he is holding a controller, where it is not really him getting hurt but just his character, like he is watching himself instead of actually living it. He even admits he is not sure if he is the one truly having fun. Hinami asks if he means he sees himself as the player watching from a distance or just a normal player with a lot of chicks. Takahiro says yes, that he feels like he's putting on a big performance for everyone. Hinami then admits that she understands that feeling, since she also watches herself from the outside sometimes, like she is playing a role instead of being real. Tomozaki is still hiding, and he can tell that she's not fully opening up and that the version of Hinami talking right now is still the polished one, not the real one underneath. Takahiro seems to sense that too, and then, out of nowhere, he confesses that he likes her. Takahiro already expects to get rejected, but he at least hoped that Hinami would drop the perfect act for a second and be honest with him. Out of nowhere, Tomozaki steps out of hiding and apologizes for being a creepy stalking weirdo. Hinami explains that she only met Tomozaki because he was leaving the bathroom earlier, and when Takahiro showed up, she hid him so he would not reach any conclusions or season spoilers. Later, the boys are on the subway heading home, and Tomozaki is thinking about what just happened. He realizes Takahiro and Hinami are kind of similar, both acting like they are playing roles, but they are different deep inside. Takahiro at least showed something real, while Hinami kept her mask on the entire time, never dropping character like the perfect thespian. Tomozaki thinks about Kikuchi and starts wondering if blindly following Hinami's instructions is just turning him into another performer instead of himself. If he keeps using pre-made dialogue options, then there's no difference between him and an in-game character. The next morning, he meets Kikuchi to watch the fireworks, and she's absolutely stunning. As they walk around, he talks about the barbecue trip with the boys, sounding way more relaxed than before, not like he is reading from a script. They head up a hill to get a good view, and Kikuchi tells him that she has not watched fireworks since she was little, and Tomozaki, the introvert final boss, says it is the same for him. While they watch, Tomozaki notices that he's actually enjoying himself without forcing topics or checking mental notes. So he asks Kikuchi how it felt talking with him that day, and she says that it was easy to follow and natural. That answer there hit him harder than any perfect strategy ever could. Later, after walking her to the subway station near her house, Hinami messages him, asking to meet and talk about how the date went. When they meet, Tomozaki admits that he did not ask Kikuchi to officially go out with him. He also tells her he did not use any memorized conversation topics that night, and that is probably why Kikuchi felt comfortable and not absolutely creeped out by the basement gamer. Hinami says that she understands what he's trying to do, but warns him that changing direction now would mean throwing away all the progress he made. When he tries to ask her to stay and talk more, she shuts it down and says that your turn ends the moment you let go of the controller. Then she asks for her backpack back and returns the bag clip he once gave her in exchange for the bag, like she is resetting the inventory loot. Tomozaki thinks about his original goal, which was to close the gap between them, but somehow, he just lost whatever connection he thought they had, and it slipped away so easily that it feels unfair. He says that it all happened because he is still just a bottom-tier character. After that talk with Hinami, Tamazaki goes back to his default shut-and-neat mode, locking himself in his room for 2 days and grinding his favorite game with a blank face. He gets so deep into button mashing that he doesn't even hear his little sister knocking for dinner. When he finally comes out like a zombie leaving its grave, she stops him and asks what's going on. She reminds him that he had been improving a lot lately, even bringing popular friends home like he got some new popularity power-up. But he just stands there and says almost nothing. The ever-lonely gamer left her on red for 2 whole days, so he quickly replies, agrees to go with her, and apologizes for taking forever. His sister sees him finally show some emotion and cheers him on, thinking he must be going through something serious. The next morning, on his way to meet Kikuchi, he keeps thinking about how much courage she needed to invite him, and how he just ignored it like the ungrateful and clueless loser he is. So that day, he decides to stop using his memorized lines and just act natural, even going back to his old style of dressing instead of the upgraded Hinami version. He tells himself that no matter how their friendship started, he wants to be honest and show his real self. The result is exactly what anyone would expect, and the conversation turns awkward and slow, but at the same time, it feels more real, like he is finally playing without a guide open in another tab. They reach the bookstore, and before grabbing Andy's new book, she shows him another book she really likes. It turns out to be a romance, and he is surprised because he did not expect her to be into that type of thing. She says that she actually wants her own novels to feel like that one. And after that, they buy the new release and head to a restaurant. Before the food comes, Tomozaki goes to the bathroom, and while staring at himself in the mirror like some Temu alpha male, he realizes something. He wants to be his true self that day, but without the clothes, posture, and social tricks he learned from Hinami. He just looks awkward and kind of unfinished, like a T-posing mannequin character. He starts to understand that what he told Hinami earlier was not fully true. As he worked on his looks and conversation skills, he actually felt proud of himself. At some point, it stopped feeling like he was just playing a game, and it felt like he was becoming an actual character with development instead of a background extra. When he comes back to the table, he tells Kikuchi everything. He admits that since he met her, someone has been helping him train his social skills, and that he even used memorized conversation cards like some dating simulator addict. But after the fireworks festival, he decides that he wants to try being himself. He says it did not feel fair that he kept talking to her while basically wearing a social mask. Then he asks her what she thinks about if he should keep improving and leveling up his social stats, or just stay as he naturally is. She explains that talking to him feels easy because she can clearly imagine what he is saying. Sometimes she also just says whatever comes to her mind. And now she understands that his smooth moments were probably from those cards he memorized. Before they started talking, she saw his world as gray and dull, and she thought maybe he was just like her. But as he improved and changed, the world around him seemed more colorful, like the stories written by his favorite authors. She tells him that is why she thinks it's amazing that he managed to change her world in such a short time, like some downloadable content. If someone adds that much color to a person's life, then that person is special and shouldn't be treated like some random side character. Later, Tamazaki keeps thinking about what she told him and decides to message Hinami so they can talk about everything. She replies in her usual cold style and says that there's nothing to discuss, but he insists on meeting her and even uses returning her bag as an excuse until she finally decides to meet at the subway station. The next morning, Hinami shows up looking like she would rather be anywhere else, and Tamazaki suggests they move somewhere quieter, taking her back to the spot where they first met and trying to make it feel meaningful instead of awkward. She makes fun of him and asks what excuse he is going to use next, so he finally summons the final excuse power-up. Before he met her, his world felt gray and empty, and video games were the only place where he could feel like someone else without hating himself. But in real life, he was just Tamazaki, and that version was the equivalent of Sonic with no speed. Then she showed up and started teaching him how to play life like it was another game. He tells her he wants to keep improving his social skills, but he does not want to ignore what he actually feels anymore. Hinami says he is just being emotional and that she does not believe in that kind of thing, and Tamazaki says that maybe that's why she has never beaten him in TACFAM, because she plays without real desire, while he actually enjoys it. In his mind, that means he has already beaten her in the so-called game of life, because he is having real fun instead of just calculating every move like some spectating player. Then he admits that he still wants to grow in real life, and for that, he needs her help. Hinami warns him that one day her lessons might clash with what he wants, but Tamazaki says that if that happens, he will skip them and move with his desires. After that, she agrees to continue guiding him. Later on, they head to her favorite restaurant, and Tamazaki shows more confidence by ordering salted fish without overthinking it for 10 minutes. Hinami, who loves cheese like it is her oxygen, the same thing, but with extra cheese. She then says they already wasted enough time being dramatic, so training resumes immediately. Hinami tells Tomozaki his next goal, which is getting a part-time job. Later that day, he goes to a job interview, and when he arrives, he sees Takahiro working there and immediately realizes that Hinami set this up. Takahiro wishes him luck and leaves him to face the interview alone, and later, Tomozaki hangs out with the boys, and it is clear that he is getting closer to them. His dates with Kikuchi also keep working out, and she asks him to read her new novel and give his opinion, which is a big deal coming from her. In the end, Tomozaki gets the job and starts training under Takahiro, and they even serve the boys at the workplace. He has fun with everyone, and he ends up being very happy in this game of life. With Tomozaki's love life slowly becoming a reality, what comes next for the pro-nerd turned Rizz Lord? Comment part 2 to find out, and don't forget to leave a like and turn on post notifications for the next one.